Hey everyone, this is Casey and welcome back to the channel. So today is your stimulus update and stimulus package update for August 4th, 2020. And we have a lot to unpack today, so let's just jump right into it. So Democratic leaders had a meeting with Trump administration Tuesday and stated that they are making progress towards a stimulus package deal. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat of California, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat of New York, met today with Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. They met for about 90 minutes on Tuesday. And speaking to reporters after the meeting, Schumer said that, I quote, "we're making progress." Now, that's good news, but what does that exactly mean? Well, as of now, there's a number of things that they have agreed on, but then there's also a number of things that they have not agreed on. And today I'm going to be going over with you guys what they have agreed on, what they haven't agreed on, and what this all means. Now, keep in mind that the Senate is set to go on recess this Friday, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and also Senate Majority Leader McConnell have both expressed their desires to get a deal agreed upon this Friday, at least in principle, before they go on recess. They did also say that although they haven't confirmed yet, and I'm referring to the Senate on the Republican side, although they haven't confirmed yet as to whether or not that they're going to postpone their recess, they did state that it would be very concerning and that it would look very poorly if they did not get a deal done, agreed at least in principle by this Friday, and then they end up taking a recess. So I think for all intents and purposes, they fully plan on getting something done, at least from a verbal agreed standpoint, and then possibly maybe signing it into law next week. But let's kind of go over exactly what they have agreed on, what they have not agreed on, and where I think that they may be headed for this week. So from the agreement standpoint, they have agreed to a consensus on stimulus checks, and that's a very positive thing, right? So everyone is very uncertain as to whether or not we're going to get stimulus checks. We aren't, and so they reiterated again today that for all intents and purposes, a second stimulus check will be coming. The White House has approved it verbally. The Republicans have approved it in their latest HEALS Act, and the Democrats in their previous HEROES Act that was approved back in May, they've also agreed upon it as well. So they're all on the same page with the $1,200 for the stimulus check. That is coming. On an even better positive note, they are also in discussions of expanding the limits of who is qualified for the stimulus check this go around. That is the only thing that they haven't agreed upon as far as the stimulus checks are concerned. So previously, if you received the stimulus check and you had dependents, you also received the $500 for dependents who were under the age of 17. But this go around that they are discussing removing that limitations, and it is going to cover all dependents across all ages. And this is great news. So at this point, that was put into the HEALS Act that the GOP recently presented to the Democrats. That also was put into the HEROES Act that the Democrats presented to the GOP back in the middle of May. And the White House is on board with that as well. So they have that language from both deals that basically states that they're going to remove the limitation for dependents. So that's awesome, because that's about 26 million dependents that are now going to be covered. So if nothing else, you are going to get a lot more money for all of your dependents that you didn't get before. Now, they did want to, when I mean they, I'm referring to the Democrats, they did want to include illegal immigrants in this particular stimulus check covering, but it appears as though that the Republicans are just flat out not supporting that as of right now. So that may still be in the deal, but as of right now, that doesn't appear as though that's going to be in the finalized agreement. Now, what they've also agreed on is they have agreed on the consensus for small business aid. They've agreed on the amount. They haven't specified exactly what that amount is, but they have agreed to extend the PPP loan amounts and the PPP loan funding. So that's a positive news for small businesses. Now, some of the things they have not agreed upon yet. They are still heavily divided over unemployment insurance, which is the really, really big kicker that everyone is waiting on. So as you guys are aware, the $600 per week expired, and the moratorium has expired for eviction notices. And the Republicans have offered to extend the $600 per week unemployment bonus or benefit, if you will, for 1 week. And Trump has stated that he's willing to do an executive order to help out with the evictions if they can't come to an agreement, the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, the Democrats have stated that they are not on board with just extending the $600 per week. They're basically saying that that's a slap in the face, and that because of the unemployment numbers, that this needs to be extended well into the end of the year, if not even beginning of next year. And the GOP just flat out isn't having it. They still believe that $600 a week additional is just so much money, and that it's not going to, and that it's disincentivizing people to want to go back to work. And as I stated in my last video, there have been studies from universities and colleges throughout the country, Yale being one of the main ones, that have stated that that's just not the case, that the $600 per week unemployment benefits additional is not disincentivizing people, because in the very same breath as people are receiving the unemployment benefits, we're also being told to stay home and to stay sheltered in to try to minimize our exposure to the virus, COVID-19 virus. So it's kind of a catch-22 at this point, and it shows flat out that's just not the case from that aspect. Not to mention there's obviously reductions in jobs, reductions in opportunities and things of that nature. So so they have not agreed as to what they're going to do with that. Now, in addition to that, the Republicans, not only do they want to reduce the $600 to $200 per week, but they want to do that until the unemployment agencies at the state level can update their systems that will only distribute up to 70% of your unemployment. So if the Republicans have their way, we'll only be getting $200 a week until like September, and then once the systems for the state level have their unemployment up to date, then they'll reduce that to 70% of your regular pay. And the Democrats have just flat out said no. Nancy Pelosi, she said that she is not currently open to budging on the $600 per week additional unemployment, that she says that our economy needs it, that there's still tons of people unemployed, that there's so many questions about the COVID-19 virus and infections as to whether we're opening or closing, and so she's not on board with reducing that. She did say that she is open to lowering the amount of the $600 per week additional if the unemployment numbers continue to drop. Now, the reason this is important is because if they're going to get a deal done by this Friday, there's only going to be one additional unemployment numbers that takes place, and that's going to be this Thursday. And so if the unemployment numbers is lower than what it was previously, then they may budge on that. Maybe they'll come to a $300 or $400 agreement. But if the unemployment numbers are bad this week, then you can almost guarantee that I don't think that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats are going to budge on that $600 a week. So something's going to have to give with that. In addition to that, they have not yet come to an agreement on what the state aid and local government state aid amounts are going to be. So, as I stated in the previous video, the Democrats want to provide significantly more aid and funding to the state and to the local governments for COVID-19 assistance, for employment assistance, and also for incentivizing companies to hire and so forth, and for testing. And so right now, the Republicans are saying, nope, we don't want to provide all that additional money. And so they're literally, as of right now, the Democrats are double the budget that the Republicans want to be with that. And then in addition to that, they're not yet on the same page with the rent, mortgage, and food assistance. So the Democrats want to provide quite a bit of money for rent assistance for people who are affected, who've lost their jobs, also for people who are behind on their mortgages, who've lost their jobs as well. And they also want to provide some kind of additional government funding. Maybe they want to increase the already deployed WIC benefits for a lot of families. They want to increase those limits, and the GOP is basically saying, yeah, we'll give you some, but we're not going to give you the amounts that you guys are asking for. So they're not yet on the same page with that. Now, another really big, huge contention as well, and this is kind of where the White House steps in, is that Donald Trump, he wants to attach funding for schools related to their opening. So Donald Trump wants to, the president, he wants to only allow schools to receive funding if they agree to open and do so in person by a minimum of 50%. And, Speaker Nancy Pelosi stated that she thinks that that's just completely backwards and upside down. That she doesn't believe that we should be attaching funding to schools to help have clean and sanitary schools and testing to them opening up, that we should actually be providing them funding before they open so that they're prepared for when they do open. And I can't say that I disagree with her on that one. I mean, At this point, I think schools and businesses and institutions do need funding to ensure that there's proper testing and so forth. And so, it's kind of like saying that you're going to get in the car and start driving before you know where you're going. So I definitely agree with her on that one, but that is what the president wants to do. And so that is a very big contentious issue right now. Now, with this all said and done, they are on the same page, and they did say that they do want to have a deal done by this Friday. And that's very, very good news because, quite frankly, it needs to get done. So I'm really hoping that they do have something figured out. I think they're going to probably wait till the unemployment numbers comes out this Thursday before they really start to give and cave in. And then I think we'll probably hear something by this Friday definitively as to a bill being agreed upon in person, or I should say verbally, kind of a handshake, and then they will look at potentially assigning them into law next week, which means the Republicans will have to postpone their recess. Poor them, having to postpone their vacation for a couple of days while the economy is in distress. So I do think that's going to take place. And we're just going to kind of take our times and just kind of wait at this point. So I really can't thank you guys enough for tuning into the video. Hopefully this was beneficial enough and give you guys a lot of content and value as to where we are. Now this is the latest as of today, so there's nothing later, there's nothing new, I should say, in terms of what's been stated or what's been released in the news. As promised, I told you guys that I was going to be making videos with the stimulus updates as we received any kind of pertinent or substantial information to keep you guys updated. So I really hope that this is beneficial. If you haven't already, I would highly recommend that you guys subscribe to the channel and make sure you like the video. So if you haven't already, if you haven't been to the channel before, this is a financial education channel. So I do a lot of financial videos about saving, investing, brokerage accounts, purchasing, how to grow wealth, and how to take care of your family from a financial aspect. But as of late, I've been doing a lot of videos with the stimulus updates because that's what a lot of people have been asking for, and so that's what I'm going to continue to make until we can get this bill approved and we can get the payments distributed, and then we can go from there. I want to also leave you guys with one additional thing. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you guys please make sure that your information is up to date with the IRS, because for the second stimulus checks, when they do get distributed, you want to make sure that you get that the same day. And so typically, the last stimulus check that came out, the IRS, or I should say the Treasury, they had a lot of issues getting people their stimulus money because they didn't have the latest addresses on file, or people hadn't filed their tax returns in the past 2 years. But you can go online to irs.gov and update your address information so that they can and update, or I should say, not only just your address but your direct deposit information. So once those checks are approved, that will show up in your bank account the next day or within 48 hours instead of having to wait 2 or 3 months or so forth. So other than that, that's all I have for you guys today. So I really appreciate you tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Take care.